Hey, everybody. Welcome to SaaStr. Is everybody enjoying day 2? Yeah, it's good. Great. So my name is Sanjay Sarathi, and I work at a company called Cloudinary. And we are the image and video platform for the web. And what I'd like to do today is talk a fair bit about our journey towards building a $100 million plus ARR business, but very specifically some of the lessons we've learned along the way in terms of building both a PLG motion as well as an enterprise sales motion. And some of these lessons have come about because of beliefs we held and hypotheses that turned out to be true and that we've doubled down and continued to invest in. And some of the lessons have come about because of mistakes we made, right? We made assumptions that were wrong and there were hard lessons, but I think both types of lessons hopefully will be useful for this audience as you continue down your journey of building great SaaS businesses. Just for my own education, just a show of hands, how many people here work for a business that currently has a PLG motion or self-service motion? And of those people raising their hands, how many also have an enterprise sales motion? Excuse me. All right, good. So internally, we happen to use the word self-service, so interchangeably with PLG. So if I lapse into saying self-service, just know that I mean PLG as well, right? We go back and forth between the two. I thought it'd be useful to start with how Cloudinary came to be, and this is a very detailed slide. But the 3 founders at Cloudinary were developers. And prior to their founding Cloudinary, they actually owned their own consulting firm. And they worked with startups and helped those startups come to market. And they built applications. And one of the things they noticed as they helped these startups come to market is that time and time again, they were manually editing images, manually editing videos, cropping them, transforming them, resizing them. And one of the 3, one of the partners, said to the other 2, hey, I've got an idea. And this is the actual email he sent in 2011. And one of the things he said is, the 3 of us are developers. What would we as developers want from a cloud-based service, a SaaS service, if we were to do this and make use of it ourselves? So that was sort of the origin of Cloudinary. You fast forward a year to 2012 is when we launched the company and launched the business. You'll see a couple of other things in here that are relevant to the lessons I'll talk about in the future. One is they immediately started to think about a PLG motion, a pay-as-you-go motion. You'll see at the bottom some pricing thoughts, right? They did not envision initially this being a large enterprise sales group. They said, how do we get to market quickly and engage with developers right away? So now we get to the lessons. Lesson number 1. If there's one thing that you take away from this slide is we strongly believe, and it's proven to be true, that customer success, customer support is an enabler of PLG growth and is not just a cost center. And if you think about our audience, our core audience at the beginning, it was developers. The 5th employee we hired, and remember, the founders were employees 1, 2, 3. So the second non-founder employee was a person we brought into the customer success group. He was the first person there. That person is now our VP of customer support, right? Fabulous guy. The people we hire in the customer success group are developers. They engage as peers with our customers, with the people using our product. They obviously know our APIs, but they also know the specific languages and frameworks that these developers build in. And what this has done is drive word of mouth. The other point I'll make is, if you remember the origins of the founders, they had a consulting company. In consulting, if your customer was not happy, you did not get paid, right? So that mindset was very much part of how we built out our customer success organization. We absolutely have to make developers successful. The pie chart you see in front of you is from 2023. And it's specifically part of our NPS survey that goes out on a regular basis. We ask the standard NPS question, would you recommend Cloudinary, blah, blah, blah. But we ask 2 other questions. We ask one question, what do you like about Cloudinary? And that's the pie chart you see here, we also ask the question, where do we need to improve? And my point is, 12 years after we started hiring CS people, it's still the number 2 reason why people like Cloudinary, right? It's what drives word of mouth for Cloudinary in the developer ecosystem. Lesson number 2. We didn't have a marketing organization. We didn't focus on building a marketing organization. Again, the founders asked themselves, what do we as developers like to do? We like reading about how to build things. What are best practices around building things? So the founders, in fact, you see Nadav's name here. He's our chief product officer. He wrote our content, our technical content. And it was 2 forms of content that we focused on. Content in our blogs, which is what you see here, and content associated with documentation. And essentially, that was how they got visibility. That's how they drove visibility through Google searches. That's how developers found them as well. An interesting anecdote, just a couple of months ago, we have our own Discord channel. We had a user ask a question, how do I do X, Y, Z? And somebody answered, oh, there's this great blog post that you should look at. And it answers the question. And that blog post was written 9 years ago, right? From 2014, right? Was relevant to a question a developer was asking in 2023. So the content has a long tail life, if you will. Not just the immediate impact, but a long tail life, and it helps solve that particular developer's problem. Something that I love constantly talking about internally as well. So the first 2 lessons really around PLG motion, right? The third lesson was something that didn't naturally come to us. The first 2 lessons were belief statements we held true. They've proven to be true. This one was a really interesting lesson for us. So if you fast forward a few years, what we started to find out is that customers who were on one of our self-service plans started to expand. They outgrew our self-service plans, and they said, what do we do next? We also started to get inbound inquiries from customers or prospects who said, hey, I'd like to work with you, but none of these self-service plans actually works. And remember, no sales organization at that time. So what we started to do is to say, okay, we need a sales team. We need to have SDRs. We need to have account executives. We need to have sales engineers, et cetera, the whole works. And for the first couple of years, we essentially kept them somewhat separate. Right? We said, oh, there's a self-service motion here, there's an enterprise motion there, and never the twain shall meet. But that was, over time, we said, maybe that's not the right thing to do. Because what happens when you're a self-service customer, you're growing, and all of a sudden, boom, you have an enterprise account exec saying, hey, we'd love for you to pay us $500,000 a year. Well, that's not what a developer is thinking, right? Or wants to talk about. So what we actually did was build an engagement team within the customer success group that looked at the higher end of our self-service customers and started to ask questions around, what does success to you look like? Right? Not how much are you willing to pay. What does success to you look like in 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? And they started to build out use cases, right? They started to say, hey, here's our use case, here's what we're trying to do, here's our vision for the future. Every company wants to become bigger. All of you want to grow your businesses, right? It was the same for our customers as well. And so in a non-threatening way, we had a customer engagement team that helped navigate what these customers wanted to do. And then some percentage of them were ready. They were ready to buy into sort of a higher enterprise plan. And there was a natural transition between being a self-service customer and engaging with our enterprise sales team. So we tried to smooth that transition between the two. That's on the business side. If you look at it from the perspective of the technology side, there's also this continuum playing itself out. So what we found is, as we started to grow our revenues and our enterprise customer base, they had very specific requirements, right? And they said, we need you to be able to do X or Y or Z. But we're a multi-tenant SaaS service. So every improvement we made because of a request from an enterprise customer that paid us large number, 6 figures or more, made its way and benefited even the self-service customers as well, right? So we started to get this flow, this bi-directional flow of not just input, but features that benefited both sides because we had both sides input. At the same time, we also have, one of the things we're doing right now is we have, even though we're not an open source company, we have a number of open source components to our product and libraries and whatnot, and we engage with the community around them. And what's happened recently is one of those components has really taken off. And we've had great traction in the developer world. And what started to happen is a lot of enterprise customers go, hey, this is really interesting. I'm kind of curious. Do I have access to this? Can I play with it? What does it take for you to support this, even though it's, quote unquote, an open source component? And so we started to see sort of work that we did at the PLG level start to influence how enterprise customers started adopting technology as well. So we found that it's worked really well to have both PLG and sales motions treated as a continuum versus two separate, completely separate entities within our organization. Lesson 4. So this is where there's one unique aspect of Cloudinary that I need to talk about is we are a self-funded business. We got a little bit lucky, so we don't have any VC backing. But what a self-funded business means is, yes, you have to count every penny. You need to know where you're at, but you need to be really productive, right, with the employees you have. And the bet we made was we should hire a CFO really early in our history to help guide us in terms of what this investment model looks like, initially with just the PLG model, but over time, the PLG and an enterprise sales model. The number you see there, the $300K per employee, is what a self-funded business needs to essentially be break-even. That's our, roughly, break-even point, right? So what the CFO helps us understand, if you think about where we are today, we've got PLG motions, we've got enterprise sales motions, we've got operations around the world. We don't just engage with developers, we engage with marketing folks, et cetera, other audiences types, persona types. And our finance organization, our CFO, really helps us understand what investments we need to make, how do we measure what works and what doesn't work, and where do we double down, triple down, really put fuel on something that works. And he's one of those people that'll say, if you show me something that gives me a 3x ROI, I will open my checkbook. Absolutely, no questions asked. Because we show that it works, right? And that's sort of the discipline that we built in. So hiring, it might not necessarily be a CFO, you might think of it as VP of Finance, whatever, but incredibly, incredibly useful for us, especially as we thought about modeling our go-to-market motions. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about the impact. So if you think about lesson 1, hiring early with a CS organization really impacted our word of mouth, really impacted developer enablement, developers building applications. Talked a little bit about credible technical content and what that meant. Today, and actually it's been true for the last 4 or 5 years, 70% of our PLG business comes from one of 3 sources: Google searches, word of mouth, and third-party content, right? And what do I mean by third-party content? These are often, not always, developers who say, I built application X using Cloudinary, this particular language framework, this particular CMS, et cetera. Look at my template, look at my portfolio, right? And we get huge word of mouth that way, right? And the great thing about these 3 sources is that it's very sustainable, very replicable, right? Very efficient. And so one of the things that we constantly do is constantly check this and say, hey, how are we doing across all 3? And we measure each one of these 3 quite regularly. Is this working? Is this not? Okay. The other part, I talked about a continuum. If you look at our enterprise business today, 40% of the accounts, not the dollar amount, but the accounts, 40% of our accounts, their first payment with Cloudinary was with one of our self-service plans. $99, $249, $549 a month, and the top plan is like $10.99 a month, self-service plan, right? We have people paying us significant amounts of money when the first time they paid us was with $99 a month, right? So we believe strongly that if we do a really good job making our PLG customers successful, they will grow with us, right? And so we've spent a lot of time sort of figuring out what it takes to make them successful. But this is one of the things that is absolutely true today. Lesson 5, and this is going to be a longer story, but this highlights one of the biggest mistakes we made. So our core product is a product called Programmable Media. It started off, obviously, in 2012. And we built it slowly, and we grew it to the point where it is now the majority of our business. And after a few years, we said, we can't just be a one-product company. We have to be a multi-product company. We believe we'll still stick to our main areas of images and videos, but we're going to address different personas. We're going to address the marketing persona. We're going to address the creative persona. We're going to address different use cases. And the big mistake we made is we said, hey, great, we've got all this infrastructure for our main product, Programmable Media. We're going to take that same infrastructure and just apply it to the new products we thought about, right? So we're going to take product marketing, we're going to take sales, we're going to take customer success, we're going to take all the engineering and put them into these new product lines. But we did it before we had product market fit. And so we ran into this issue with one product where we were cannibalizing Programmable Media without even having product market fit, right? Big no-no, right? We ran into a product where we said, ran into a situation where we said we had invested a ton of money into it and generated, very little return. And so we very quickly came to the realization that we had to separate how we think about new product go-to-market motions versus mature product go-to-market motions. They're very different. So as you think about building a multi-product portfolio, what I would encourage you to do, and it has worked really well, so we have essentially a group internally now at Cloudinary that focuses just on that left-hand side. They're small teams. They move really quickly. They iterate every day or every couple of days on new capabilities and new features. They experiment, move fast, fail fast, right? And we're very comfortable with failing products. And saying, yeah, this product is not going to get to market. It doesn't hit whatever product market fit gates we put in its place. But much rather do that when you're on the left-hand side of the investment portfolio than on the right-hand side of the investment portfolio. What we then do is if a product has met the gates, then we sort of feed the beast, if you will. All of a sudden, it's about scaling. It's about reaching as broad an audience as possible. It's about defining what the profitability goals are for that product. It's about defining ROI equals 3x or whatever the number is that meets your particular financial guidelines, right? We're very much about scaling as quickly as possible. But this was a hard lesson for us, right? And it took us a while to figure out from both our own DNA, our own infrastructure, how to make this work. Internally, we call this the invest versus scale saga. There's a time for invest businesses and how you do that well, and there's a place for scale businesses that have product market fit, that you know how to go to market around, and that are mature, and you pour a lot of money into. So painful lesson, something that I think we've learned a lot from over the past few years. So those were sort of the 5 lessons. I wanted to sort of recap some of the things that we talked about and just maybe add a couple more items. Think of customer support and success as a growth lever, right, for yourselves. If you pair your primary persona with the people trying to help them be successful, and there's a match there, good things happen. Right? Credible technical content that helps your audience, your persona, become successful in their own right, helps a business become successful, becomes a virtuous circle. And it pays off in spades, both immediately and down the road. Whether you choose to hire a CFO early or not, that obviously completely up to you, but no matter what you do, you have to model your investment and growth plan. You can't wing it, right? Do it well, test it, constantly test your assumptions. We constantly test ours, and I think you'll be better off. And the bottom two, the first three were ones that our hypotheses were true. We believed in strongly from the get-go. We invest in it, we double down on it. The bottom two are ones that we came to figure out over time, right? Our belief that PLG and sales motions are a continuum, right? Both at the business level as well as at a technical level, right? Figure out how you can help both sides of the house be more successful from the work done by the other. And that's what we do internally at Cloudinary. And the last one is truly understand, if you are going to be a multi-product company, truly understand when your product deserves to have mature go-to-market motions around it, scale, profitability measurements, ROI measurements, et cetera, and when you need to have a lean team just figure out product market fit. And we have a lot more to do on all of these fronts ourselves, but hopefully these have been useful for you, and I'm more than happy to obviously take questions, but I also wanted to share my email as well as my Twitter handle. So if you do have questions on our journey or on PLG or enterprise sales motions, I'm more than happy to engage. Thank you very much. Questions? Okay. Yep.
Hello. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for excellent presentation. Can you maybe share some examples how you can make sales motion and BLG to support each other? Because in our company we continuously run into problems that, for example, if I target market resources to PLG, the enterprise folks get unhappy that like why you support online sales instead of us, or if I tell enterprise folks to upsell to maybe to some customers that are already onboarded to PLG through PLG, like I might end up compensating them something that they're not maybe earned. So can you maybe share some examples how you actually have made them work together?
Sure. So I'll give you a very simple tactical example. So every time we get thousands of registrations a month, right, from people who download. If that registration is with an email address that has a specific domain, right, one of the first things we do is we have an automated process, right, if it's an enterprise target account, we tell the enterprise sales teams, hey, company XYZ just registered for Cloudinary. We don't want a PLG motion out of this. Let's put this into the enterprise sales funnel just to ask questions, right? They may not be ready. Maybe they're just exploring, what have you. But if a large Fortune 500 company registers under the domain, we immediately feed it into the enterprise sales cycle, right? So that's one approach. The other is we're constantly, it's a little harder to do, but we're constantly back to the CSM team. They work with both sides, right? This engagement team understands what's happening with some of these larger self-service accounts, and they will have regular conversations with the enterprise sales team to say, hey, because we've got these 6 or 7 accounts that are starting to grow, when would you like to be involved in this, right? So we give the option, right? We sit there and go, when would you like to be involved? And every enterprise salesperson is going, I would love to be involved, right? So it gives them the feeling like we're trying to help them out versus taking away. And I think that's a key part of that.
Thank you. Excellent answer.
So thanks for the great presentation. One thing I was think you guys did a great job of like not raising VC capital to be able to bootstrap this along the way, which is I did not know that. So every 10 stories, this is like one of those anomalies. What I was curious about, how do you know what, as a bootstrap company, what areas you need to focus on at different milestone by being a product led? I mean, I'm sure. Is there any framework, simple ideas that you have?
Yeah, I forgot to mention it here. It's interesting. Our CEO actually spoke at SaaStr last year, and he talked specifically about the question you're asking, which is about sort of some of the principles about bootstrapping and how he thought about different stages, if you will. So if you go onto YouTube and search Cloudinary and SaaStr, you'll find his presentation from last year. It's an ongoing process, right? I mean, one of them, for example, I will say one of the challenging ones is when do we introduce new product, right? It's not intuitive, right? As an example, we go through a lot of discussion. So what we've tried to do is build certain frameworks. They're not perfect by any stretch. We sort of say, hey, when is it the right time to think about a new product? What is the process of thinking about a new product, right? And so we try and build a mechanism so that we can make decisions like this. When do we invest? We have discussions around. We have basically 3 or 4 planning processes, right? We've got a process that says, this is the vision. What do we want to be in 5 years? So big, hairy, audacious goals. Then we've got the 3-year. We got to hit these numbers in 3 years. Then we've got the yearly plan. Then we've got a quarterly plan, right? So we try and line these all up so that people doing the quarterly work are aligned with how we think about the yearly plan. The yearly plan fits into the 3-year model. The 3-year model fits into the 5-year vision. Does it always work like that? No, it's not perfect. But laying that out in that way gives everybody sort of a North Star. And then we've got our finance team going, okay, if we want to do this, here's the investment model, etc. And the thing we do, I think, pretty well, or we focused, is because we try and hit this is a sign of are we being productive or not, right? This 300K per employee number. If we're a little bit above it, guess what? We have a little more freedom to invest more in a particular area. We make decisions on where we want to invest. If we're not hitting that number as tightly as we want to, we go, okay, where are the areas that we need to really improve on, right? And we stop investing in those areas because it's not working. So it goes both ways, right? And it might be a hard lesson, but it's a great constraint when you don't have 50 million in the bank, where you go, oh yeah, I'm just going to draw down on that 50 million. Now, if you ask Itai gets a call a day from a VC saying, I'd love to invest in your business, right? We've taken secondary rounds where employees are able to cash out, but there's been no primary funding. I don't know if it answers your question thoroughly. Yeah.
Hi. So thank you for the talk. I have 2 questions for you. My first one is about customer success, and especially for tools that are for the developers.
Yep.
So I'm not talking about support engineers and the support team, but I'm talking about customer success, so proactive customer success.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that these people should be technical if the tool is for developers?
Our customer, so not just customer support, our customer success managers are technical too.
All right. Okay.
They're technical.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Maybe not hardcore developers.
Yeah.
But they all,
they
90%
what's
of them
an
have
API
CS degrees at some point, did some level of had some technical job. Because the types of questions, even if you're trying to work with a Fortune 100 client and talking about, hey, here's the thing, you need to be credible, right? Mm-hmm. If you're talking to a VP of engineering, right, who's one of our core audiences, and that person's saying, hey, I need to be able to do this to support my business goals, you have to be credible enough to talk at a technical level. So we just made that conscious decision that the people in customer success have both great technical skill sets and great customer-facing, customer engagement. It's not an easy combination.
That's right.
It's a hard combination. I'm sure that's your next question. Right?
Yeah.
It's a hard combination to find, and we spend. It's why employee referrals tend to be a great source, because people within our company understand our DNA and what is required to be successful. So that has tended to be one of the best sources of employee referrals we have.
All right. And my second question is about going from sales-driven to PLG and sales. So what I mean is that we started with so we're a commercial open source company, and so we started with the open core business model with a very much sales-driven approach, which has been very successful. And we recently released our managed offering, so with a SaaS product.
Yeah.
And we have very much of a self-serve motion for this product. So it's 100% of our customers are self-serve customers. And the situation we are in now, and it's very much a transition, is that we are shifting from this sales-driven to this self-serve motion.
Way.
Yes, exactly. And I think it is the hardest move to do. Yeah. And the sales team keeps asking for more differentiators between our free offering and our paid offering. Yeah. And at the same time, we have to focus on PLG and self-serve. So what would be your piece of advice? I think it's important to be very intentional in front of the entire team and to make sure that we do not have too high expectations for our sales team, because it's true that they will not have new features to sell. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think one of the things we've done is very clearly outline what does an enterprise sales customer get, right? And why. It may be that your business, your market is driven off of PLG motion, right? We've found that our market can support both. But it may be that, and one of the things we had to do, and we didn't talk about it as a lesson, is be fairly clear about what goes into the self-service package versus what goes into the. Otherwise, you have run into, and naturally, an enterprise salesperson will sit there and go, wait a second, all my great deals are going to PLG because you put everything into the self-service funnel. And I understand that. It's tough. But so that's an area we spend a lot of time trying to hone. And by no means is it perfect. We're always playing around with it. But I do think we're in a much better place. I mean, we're not trying to take enterprise and move it. We're doing, in a lot of ways, the opposite, right?
Yeah.
Feeding the enterprise sales engine. So I'm not sure if I have great advice, but I think if you have a sense of why your market needs your PLG motion much more than the sales motion, or what it requires in it, then you'll be able to define those boundaries a lot more easily.
Yeah, actually need it, and I think it's just a matter of transition. And 6 months from now, we will have this proper self-serve motion that's actually fueled the sales team. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.